Hello friends, welcome back to the show, and I'm so excited that you're here because I have an incredible guest for you on the show today. And also heads up, at the end I have a special invitation for you. Welcome to season 2 of the Bigger Than You podcast, your go-to weekly podcast that blends energetics and mindset to help you do whatever it takes to bring your vision to life whilst having fun on the way. I'm Jenna Holloway, your host and multi-award-winning intuitive hypnotherapist and mindset coach. My purpose is to help mission-led business owners and visionaries who want to inspire change by leading the way in a space that otherwise may feel unnerving and too difficult. This is Bigger Than You. Thank you so much for joining me this week. I'm so excited to have an incredible guest on this podcast. And very quick story before we start. I did some journaling last Sunday. I just did an exercise in my journal, what if? And I put 1 to 10 and I just wrote 10 statements as if I'd already achieved these things. You know, like a sort of playing in the playground of potentiality type, Amazing, guy is the limit type exercise. And it was stuff like that in there, like I've written a book. And one of them was, I have interviewed Rose Radford on my podcast. And I completely forgot that I wrote that, completely forgot. Literally 2 days later, I heard that inspiration in my head. I heard the voice really loudly. Ask her, went straight into your DMs, pitched it to you, asked you, and you were like, yeah, let's do it. That night, when I was writing in my journal, something made me turn back and look, and I saw that and I was like, fuck, that's incredible how fast that came. And
you manifest quickly, Jenna.
I really do. Yeah. So yeah, it's amazing to have you here because you know what you want to achieve. You just decide, you not necessarily make a plan because I'm not like a planner really, but you just decide what you want and then you just go for it. And you're such an inspiration to me because you've been the driving force behind my business. I found you as soon as I qualified. And I just felt the pull. Like I don't know hardly any coaches in the industry. Like I don't sit there consuming loads of stuff, never have done. I literally found you, watched your masterclass and signed up for your previous program. And then here I am with you. And yeah, it's just been the most incredible journey. But I never would be where I am without you. It's so exciting to have you on the podcast to have this conversation and basically share you with my audience because yeah, they don't necessarily know who you are. So I would love for you to introduce yourself, Rose, and maybe tell some of the listeners what you've achieved, what you do, what you stand for, whatever comes to mind.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. It's been amazing to be supporting you in the last, it's over a year, isn't it? Like it's been a good little while now. Yeah. And to see you grow and like just build even more confidence and certainty and momentum and the clients you've impacted as well. It's just amazing to see. So thank you for trusting me when you first jumped in and for trusting yourself as well. And I think we should totally talk about that today, the whole self-trust piece, because it's such a critical part to our success as entrepreneurs. But hello to anybody listening right now. My name is Rose Radford and I am dubbed the Evergreen Queen. I'm also the Millionaire Girl Next Door creator of brand, let's say. And I am British, as you can probably tell. I built a 7-figure business now since starting my business about 5 years ago. I built that business before I turned the age of 30, which is a really cool story to share as well. And I typically support incredible women entrepreneurs who have expertise and talent to share with others in monetizing that. And most importantly, crafting high-ticket group coaching programs that they can sell on Evergreen. And if the word Evergreen is unfamiliar to you, it's simply the opposite of launching in the online space. It means you can sign clients every week rather than doing a launch and then shutting the doors every couple of months. So I am really passionate about putting more money in the hands of women through online entrepreneurship. And I love being able to teach the skill sets that are required to be able to make that happen, as I've discovered them over the last 5 years as well. So that is me in a nutshell.
Hey, brilliant. And so what I would love for us to just basically jam on, have a conversation. And rather than me interviewing you, I thought it would be really fun for me to share some of the key things that I stand for, because I fly the flag for the inner work. And so I would love to put it to you, some key things that I stand for, and just have you bounce off that, share whatever comes to mind, whether it's a story or your take on it, And yeah, we'll just see where we go. We might go off on a massive tangent, but let's just see. So yeah, something that we mentioned already was self-trust. And I believe that self-trust is such a key factor in the success of your business or in your success as a business owner. And I've shown it all the way through, that self-trust to invest in you straight away. And I was very new to the coaching industry. I was not aware of like coaching, kind of how much it costs to hire a coach. I didn't even realize necessarily what a coach was. And so I found you and invested very soon. Like I just binge watched your content one day and knew, like I just trusted that I knew what was right. It's how I left teaching. It's how I found myself training to be a hypnotherapist, just trusting in myself to go with my heart. So yeah, that's what I fly the flag for. Would you agree? What would you like to share in terms of self-trust?
Absolutely. And also self-trust is one of the things that allowed me to leave my job at McKinsey 5 or so years ago with just 3 months of living costs saved, a mortgage to pay, and no idea of how I was going to make money next. Just absolutely no freaking clue. And I knew I had about 90 days to figure it out. And most people would never have done that, especially at the age of 25 or whatever. And it came from deep self-trust. I think there's also a difference here between trust in yourself and trust in, let's say, the universe or bigger picture. Yeah. And I think for some reason I had both. I mean, I pulled it out the bag in the end in the most beautiful, insane way. I managed to land a contract over in Barcelona for 9 weeks and flew to Barcelona every Monday, flew back every Thursday to go and work on client site as a consultant. A bunch of hilarious men that we were like in this client situation that was just so ridiculous. Look, working with the C-suite of an airline. And we had so much fun, so much laughter. And I got paid a chunk of money for those 9 weeks. And that kept me going inside my business. And again, just self-trust all the way through. That allowed me to keep saying yes to the things that felt good without fear. And I mean, there was to a certain degree fear, but it's whether the self-trust is stronger than the fear, stronger than the self-doubt.
Yeah.
And I've often reflected on, where does that self-trust come from? Where does it get eroded for some people and built up for others? And I think in summary, it's really just down to your experiences in life and what you've made those experiences mean about you.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember my mum saying to me when I was a teenager, Rose, you make really good decisions. And it was just that one sentence from my mother at that point that made me think, oh, I can trust my decisions. Therefore, I have self-trust. Obviously not consciously, it was more subconsciously. But I'm curious to know what you see as something that builds self-trust within yourself or other people that you've worked with.
100%. It's always the things that have been said to us as we grow up. That's down to like how the brain works. We just absorb our experience as a child and we form beliefs. And so as you were saying that, I remember something that my mum always said to me, because I went to a pretty rough school growing up, and it was in a lovely area and it was just a bit of a rough school. And we had people messing up in lessons all the time, like basically just stopping the learning constantly. Fuck knows how I ever ended up being a teacher, but that's by the by.
Kind of experience.
But, yeah, like why having experienced that? Why did I end up as a teacher? But whatever. My mum always said to me, "You will achieve regardless of what's going around you, because it's down to you that will make you achieve." So it doesn't matter, if people are messing around in your lessons, you will still achieve if you want to achieve. And so that one thing stuck with me. And yeah, it is literally about something you said before that as well. It's about what we make those experiences mean, because we can have a situation that is so innocuous. Parents, they don't even realize that their kids are forming beliefs in these situations because it's going on inside your head. So you're never aware. But the tiniest thing can shape you as a person, because in that moment, as a 4-year-old or 5-year-old, even 2-year-old, it doesn't, at any point in childhood, we can form a belief based on an experience. And then boom, it affects you all the way into adulthood. And then when you start your business, and you would never know it because it's in the subconscious mind.
Yeah. So much of our inner child is running our business. I found so much without us even consciously being aware of it. And I'll give you another example of something that's happened really recently to me, where it was so clear to me I had a decision to make over whether I was going to make that experience mean something negative or positive for myself. Thankfully, I'm aware of myself enough now to make those conscious decisions. But obviously, when you're little, you can't do that. And it was literally just a couple of weeks ago, I'd made a financial decision that hadn't paid off, and I'd lost $11,000 in the process. And yes, that's a very large amount of money. For me at the time, I was like, okay, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. And in that moment, I could have made that situation mean that I am crap at making financial decisions, or I can't trust myself to make good decisions with money, which is something that so many entrepreneurs have learnt, or people in general have learnt, and then it stops them making big, bold decisions in their business. And instead of going down that route, and I could see that was totally available to me, I was like, well, what else could I make this mean? Because there are hundreds of other beliefs I could form through this experience. So what else should we choose for this one, Rose? And I ended up deciding that I had learned from a business decision or a financial decision. And I'm really grateful for that learning, and I will make better decisions next time. And that's cool. And there was like no emotional attachment to it. There was no problem around it. It was just a different decision over the belief. And that's the power of doing the inner work for yourself, because you're able to be aware of where you're going down the wrong track, let's say, that's actually not going to support you from a belief system perspective. And it allows you to go back to those inner child situations and rewrite the story, because now you're an adult, you've got an adult brain, you can have that power over the decisions that you made when you were younger too, which I am led to believe is possible with hypnotherapy, which you might know something about, Jenna.
Yeah, 100%. That led me right on to the next point, actually, which was the stories that you tell yourself matter so much, because it is down to perception, isn't it? You can choose any story. And also the fact that self-awareness is key. As business owners, if you're not self-aware as to what is going on, even down to really getting curious about what limiting beliefs do you have, and then doing something about it, rather than constantly finding yourself struggling. Like, you can empower yourself to do something about it, or to literally just rewrite the story. But if you're unaware of the stories that you're telling yourself in your mind, then you're just going down the wrong path, because your brain is always listening to you, and it will look to find the evidence of what you believe. And the stories you tell yourself matter so much.
That's so true. One of the things that I experienced, which then made me say, do you know what, I need to take this inner work piece more seriously, is, and I shared this with you ladies in Lisbon a few weeks ago on retreat, but I had a situation where there was a client inside my accelerator program who was definitely a high achiever, had very high standards for herself in the same way that I do too. And I felt as though I just wasn't being good enough for her as her coach. And I was telling myself this story, and I was being really hard on myself. And I just felt really insecure when I was coaching her. And when she was on the group calls, I could feel my body begin to respond differently. And it wasn't pleasant, and it was really frustrating. So I got very sensitive around coaching her. And then literally like a few weeks later, me being aware of this, a few weeks later, she referred her friend into the program. And at that point, I was like, whoa, okay. So clearly my inner world is very different to what's happening on the outside world. She would never have referred her friend if she thought that I was a crap coach, like I've been telling myself I have been with her. Yeah. And it just blew my mind. And it made me realize there was massive dissonance between what I was telling myself about myself and what was actually happening in reality. And that dissonance made me realize I had to go and do that deeper work, because otherwise I was going to lead my business and try and grow my business from a place of insecurity, feeling like I'm not good enough. All of those not fun emotions and feelings and beliefs were going to basically block me from creating the success I wanted. And maybe I would have created 7 figures before the age of 30 if I hadn't have done the work. But even if I had, it would have been way, way harder. I basically would have been carrying like my sack of shit on the back of me up the hill to 7 figures. Yeah. And it would have been hard. And it has not been that hard to hit the goals that I've ended up hitting. And yeah, that was the point at which I was like, right, I need to go work with a coach on this. I need to go deeper. I want to shift this out of my way, because I don't want to have to carry that sack of shit up the hill.
Yeah, 100%. And I love the fact that you've just said that, yes, the success is still possible. But do you want to take the easy way that feels joyful and fun and allows you to just enjoy the journey and create incredible experiences and having so much fun, and not working your absolute fingers to the bone because you're not making, like, subconsciously a lot of us have this thing that success needs to be hard work, whether that's through conditioning from society, or, stuff that our parents have said growing up, or teachers. We are always absorbing stuff as a child and forming beliefs. And most of the time it's not a problem. If we don't decide to go into, setting up our own business, it's not a problem. You work for somebody else, great. Like, you do your 9 to 5, you come home, you try and work hard for your employer, whatever, but it's not really your baby. But then you start your own business, and these minor things that probably never were much of an issue before, you're under the magnifying glass, and you suddenly feel so vulnerable, don't you? Yeah. And actually it can stop you enjoying your success, because you're constantly like, right, what next? What next? Because you don't feel safe.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. Yeah. Especially when you're going out there to sell yourself as an entrepreneur. And we do it to a certain degree in corporate world, because we want to get a promotion. We want to be seen to look like we're doing a good job. But actually, when our livelihood really depends on it, because we can't make a sale, or we're not making a big enough sale, or we're just like charging really low ticket, or whatever it might be, we're blocking ourselves because the stories that we're telling ourselves that say we don't feel confident enough, we don't feel like we're worth it, whatever the story might be, it really holds you back as an entrepreneur. It keeps you broke. It really keeps you broke.
Yeah. Or you can be successful, but it's just not fun. And you just constantly questioning, like, what's the next strategy? What do I do? What do I do here? And like trying to find the right answer, when actually we always know the answer deep down when we learn to trust ourselves and listen to our intuition. Like, any strategy is going to work, because not any strategy, but the strategy that is aligned to you is the one that's going to work. But you can't work out what is aligned unless you trust yourself. You're just going to like download all the freebies, or just go, my coach says I need to do this, so I'm going to have to do this. But actually you always have to run it through your own internal filter, don't you?
You really do. And if you don't know yourself well enough, you're just going to be guided by other people the entire time, which has its pros and cons. But you don't want to be guided in a direction that doesn't feel right. The only thing I have an issue with around this is when people say to me, clients, etc., that doesn't feel aligned, so I'm not going to do it.
Yes, and I know why you're going to say that.
Just try it once.
Yeah.
Try it on for size.
Yeah, because it's such a muddy water between fear and the ability to feel uncomfortable, isn't it? Because you can only grow if you're willing to get fucking uncomfortable. Like, do it. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Yes, do the inner work to support you, so you're not triggering your fight or flight response all day long, every day. Yeah. But even once you've done that inner work, the inspired action are the big, bold moves. Like, you're here now because I did something scary. And I know literally my opening line to you in the DMs, Rose, was like, oh, this feels nervous and I don't know why, but I'm doing it anyway. And like, I'm okay with that. Like, I'm used to feeling nervous, because I know that my those intuitive downloads that I get, I know that they're the ones that are going to propel me forward. So I trust them. And even when it feels nerve-wracking, I do it and I do it. I do it.
Exactly. And that, I believe, also builds your self-trust, because if you have an idea or a piece of intuitive like hit or something and you don't act on it, then your brain's going to think, okay, fine. I can't rely on her to act on the things that I'm going to tell her to do. And it just begins to erode the self-trust piece. And that's not helpful for anybody. So when you keep promises to yourself, so when you have a promise to yourself, but you don't keep it, you erode it really quickly. And it's just a very simple way to begin to build more self-trust, is to keep your own promises.
Yeah. And when you get that nudge, do it ASAP, because as soon as your brain recognizes that it's hesitation, it's going to magnify that risk, because it only cares about keeping you safe, doesn't care about your success. So your brain actually doesn't really want you to be a successful business owner. It just wants you to play small and
be safe, so the lions don't eat you.
Yeah, be safe. Exactly.
Do you know what's really crazy? So one of the things that I did at the beginning of my business that literally terrified me, but I knew I had to do it to build momentum, to get visible, to grow the business I wanted, it was to do live streams. And I know how triggering live streams can be, because it brings up all of our fear of visibility, fear of judgment, fear of fucking up, like all of the things. And I went live sitting on the floor of my bedroom at the time, propping the laptop up on this poofy thing, and you could see like a random shit in the background. And I went live and I shared my mission and what I wanted to do with my business. And I was so naive, so green, but I just did it because I thought, well, what else am I going to do? I just need to start getting out there. And it literally took me like a half an hour to hit the live button. It was an absolute joke. This would have been years ago now. And then I had one of Scott, who's my husband, one of his friends, message Scott a day later or so and said, has your girlfriend turned into a Mormon? She's talking about having a mission in life. Oh, wow. Oh my God. So basically, the first time I went live, I was like judged massively, and it even impacted my relationship. And it was like the worst thing happened in the first live stream. And in that point, I was like, okay, I can deal with it. I'm still alive. The lions haven't eaten me. It's going to be fine. And Scott was like, why don't you just like unfriend him on Facebook so he doesn't see it? And I turned around to Scott and I said, no, I'm going to take him with me. He's going to see.
Yes, I love that so much. I love that.
So yeah, even though it's scary, you've got to do it when you know that it's in alignment where you want to go, even though it feels really scary.
Yeah, 100%. Next thing that I want to bring up is being in alignment, and specifically living your life and your business by your core values. To me is extremely important, because so many entrepreneurs that I see, they have their big goals and they're like, right, okay, I will relax when I get there, or, you know, I will invest in the dream home when I get there, or whatever it is. And the thing is, when they get there, they're like, oh, fuck, I still feel the same. When you're a child and you're like, oh, I'm so looking forward to my 12th birthday. And then you turn 12 and you're like, oh, it's just the same. And it's like, you've got to realize that how you feel now is how you're going to feel too when you get the goal, because it's who we are now that dictates who we're going to be in terms of the energy and what we're putting out. We get that back. And so you have to do the work to feel good now, feel happy, feel successful, feel amazing now. So that's where the values piece for me and being in alignment comes really down to it to me. So for me, my values in my business are freedom, joy, and ease, and they matter to me so much. And so I probably should do an episode on alignment. So I will do that really soon. What's your take? Like, what does being in alignment mean to you? And maybe how that's changed from Rose 2 or 3 years ago to now.
Juicy question. It's interesting how many people I attract into my world that have very similar values to me. And equally, it's amazing to me how many people don't know their own personal values. I mean, I didn't until I started training as a life coach in a certification program like 5 years ago. And it was a point in which I was in the process of leaving McKinsey. And also I was holding back from like feeling 100% okay to do that. I discovered my values going through this process that I share with you ladies as well inside the accelerator. And it just brought this massive awareness to me about why I wasn't happy. I was so not in alignment with my values. I was like 2 out of 10 on each of my values. I'm like, well, no wonder I'm like really depressed feeling. And I can't believe people I never learned that, what a value is and why it's important. And why would we never,
shouldn't it? Totally.
Yeah, why would we never discover that? And also what's worth noting here, if anybody listening to this, is your values will change over time. So it can be worth going back to that values exercise every year, every couple of years, just to see how things evolve for you. But I remember looking at my top 3 core values at the time and realizing I was never going to be able to live in true alignment with my values by working for somebody else. I had to go and build a business. There was just no choice over it. So I was like, right, okay, that's giving me permission now to go and do the thing, which is also a powerful thing about values, because they give you permission to go and do the scary thing, because you know that's the only way you're going to get the joy, happiness, and experience that you want in life. So with that being said, alignment, yes, is about values. I'd also say alignment is a function of knowing where you want to be in terms of goal, outcome, or vision for life, and then looking at where you're currently blocking yourself from getting there.
Yeah.
So what is the difference between you right now and the person or the life that you want to create on the outside later on? What is the difference in your emotions, your belief systems, the way you're showing up, the actions you're taking? Just there's going to be 2 different people, basically, you now and you in the future. And when you can begin to figure out the difference between the 2, you can begin to either heal that, shift that, rewrite the belief, rewrite the story for yourself, all those good things. And I mean, that's good old coaching 101 as well, right? It can take a bit of time to figure that out, but that's also where when I look back over like my journals and my notebooks from the last 5 years, it's where I discovered all of the self-coaching I was doing at the time, almost unconsciously in some ways, and figuring out what are the gaps, what are the beliefs, what are the fears that are in my way right now to getting where I want to go. And having said that, the success I've created on the outside now, which comes from a huge amount of joy, inner peace, freedom, safety within myself, all of those things, as well as the number of clients that I serve, the team that I run, the money that goes through the accounts every month is terrifying. Well, not terrifying, but like to a lot of people it would be. Scott's like, what the fuck, you spend that amount of money every month in the business? I'm yes, it's a seven-figure business. What do you expect? I basically spend my entire whole salary every year in 1 month, every month. And so all of that, I actually feel safe in. Which for a lot of people, they think they're going to love it. They think they're going to get to that level of success and think that it's like happy as Larry moments. Actually, they don't. They feel insecure, unsafe, as if it's going to fall apart tomorrow, scared of what's going to come around the corner next week that they're not expecting, scared of the legal shit, scared of what's the client going to say, all of those things. It's so triggering for them because they haven't done the inner work.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the whole carrying a bag of shit up the hill to 7 figures thing. I let go of the shit as we went. It's not to say that it's all easy breezy all of the time. Still hard things happen. I'm able to cope with it a lot better. With that being said, the thing I wanted to say after all of this ramble is ultimately, I know that if it was all to fall away tomorrow in my business and my life, it would come back really quickly. Whether it's the money, the relationship, the love, the clients, all of the things. And the reason I know that to be true and I feel safe in that is because what I have on the outside is a direct reflection of what I have on the inside now.
Yes, 100%.
That's the point I wanted to land.
Yeah. And in terms of reflecting back, that's completely in line with what I teach, because how we feel about ourselves on the inside is how we experience life, because our subconscious brain is constantly scanning our surroundings and putting it through this filter of our beliefs, our experiences previously, and everything. And it decides what we're going to consciously notice. So that's how we literally create our reality, because it's down to our subconscious mind looking for a reflection of how we feel about ourselves on the inside. So exactly that, when you feel safe in your business and safe in yourself as a person, you're gonna create safety on the outside, regardless of what happens around you. So I love that you shared that.
It's so true. And if you're being triggered by your business all of the time right now, maybe you're listening to this, you're getting like things are throwing you off, fight or flight response is part of your reality every week right now, maybe, or you're really conscious of not being good enough for your clients, whatever it is that you're experiencing right now, know that it doesn't have to be that way. And doing that inner work that I know you do with your clients, Jenna, is part of that process of relieving, like really creating release from that. It doesn't have to feel as heavy and as hard.
Yeah. And I think something you shared with us on the retreat was that since you decided to do the inner work is when things really started to take off, right?
Yeah.
In terms of success.
Yeah, absolutely. I had all the strategy. I'm a strategist at heart, come from a literally strategy consulting background at the world's top consulting firm. So freaking, is it left brain or right brain? I don't even remember, but like, let's say like the masculine side of things, it's a joke. And I had all the strategy in the world in my business, but I wasn't quite creating the results that I wanted to and could. And it was when I did that deeper work, the inner work, the energy work, that actually allowed the results to come in, because I was blocking it on so many levels.
Yeah. Are you willing to get a bit vulnerable and share maybe some of the things that you had to work through in order to create that safety? And what did the inner work look like for you?
It's been a journey. There's layers to it. This is the thing. Yeah. It was probably like hundreds of stories here along the way. Let me think of one that would be really serving to the people listening. So you often hear the phrase or the affirmation, I'm enough, because often on some level, we don't feel good enough. Now, that's not to say that everybody has the limiting belief, I'm not good enough. I didn't have that. But what I did have is, even when I try really hard, nothing I do is quite good enough. So it's a more, let's say, advanced or more detailed or specific version of that belief. And we will all have something like that on some level. And so I never resonated with like, I'm not good enough, because I thought I was good enough. I had all of these accolades, the grade A's, the whatever it needed to be at school to feel like, oh, I'm good enough. I've got all of this proof that I'm amazing. Of course, I was doing it from a place of feeling like I wasn't good enough, but I wasn't consciously aware of that.
Yeah.
And where this belief came from was when I was about 5 or 6 years old. And I basically went home to my dad and said, I've got 92% in this test I did at school today. We were all measured on some level at school. I know you know this very, very well. We get measured in terms of our value as humans with tests at school. And it's often the first time we get measured in some way. And so to get this amazing score and then take it to my dad and want him to celebrate me as well, and him turn around and say, well, what happened to the other 8%? Was crushing, so crushing. And that's when I learned this belief that nothing I do is ever quite good enough. ergo, I'm not good enough. I can't remember where I was going with this story now. Well, that was one of the stories I had to shift. Okay, so now I've got a new story where everything I do is good enough because I decide that it is. Nobody else has to tell me that. I decide. And it's so freeing. And you feel safe then to do the thing and probably fuck it up. But that's all right. You did your best and that's what counts and that's good enough.
I love that so much. And because you set that intention for yourself, you can fuck up and still be wildly successful. And again, it's so aligned with the flag that I fly of just be yourself. You know, you're imperfectly perfect. And anybody that is going to judge you for who you are, then that is literally nothing about you. They're judging you because they have an issue and they have some stuff to work through themselves. So therefore you can go about your life and your business and you can do exactly what you feel is right for you. And along the way, be exactly who you are. And that will be brilliant. Because of course, you're going to be truly in alignment when you feel safe to be exactly who you are. Because if you're going on Instagram or dealing with something personally and then going on Instagram and pretending that everything is fine, then you're not being truly authentic. What I'd love actually to share, Rose, is because I've been in your world a little bit more than a year now, and you've coached me on calls every week and then spent time with me in the retreat, is how I show up on social media. Is it exactly the same as me?
Yes, it 100% is. And this is something we were chatting about right before we hit play, right? Because this is not true for other people in our industry, whether that is people I'm coming across or you're probably coming across as well. And you hear them share one thing that might be honest and vulnerable about what's happening. And then they will show up differently on social media. And there'll be a massive difference between the two. And you see it because you know what's actually happening behind the scenes for them. But it just goes to show that not everything that's being shared on social media is true. And we've got to look at it from a fairly critical eye. Look out for the people that you feel are thoroughly transparent, that are really within integrity of what they're sharing. And if your body is feeling a bit off, if you're looking at potentially investing in a coach or a mentor or somebody else, trust your body. Because I think we feel it on some level. We can't explain why, but we feel it. It's also why when you have cultivated safety for yourself in your own body and you're on a sales call with somebody and they're about to invest 5K, 10K, 20K with you, if you don't feel safe, they're not going to feel safe. They're feeling off your energy.
Yes.
So we've got to do that inner work to bring that safety if we want to be able to charge high ticket too.
Yeah.
Which is a whole other topic in itself. But yeah, what I do love so much about what I see with you and for you is obviously we're having those conversations pretty much every week. You're sharing with me the shit that's happening, the hard stuff, the vulnerability moment. And then we move through it. You're so honest about it, which I love. And then you'll either share it on social media that day, or you'll take a couple of days to like really percolate it through, and then you'll share it. And it's so with an integrity. It's really cool. And that's what makes you really magnetic to others too. Because let's be honest, Jenna, you've built a wildly successful business in the first 2 years of starting with a very, very small audience, which is basically unheard of.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you've done that through the person that you are and the person that you're stepping into and becoming along the way. And I think that's why people are magnetized towards you. There's something about you that they can't help but follow or listen to. And maybe they're stalking you right now, because let's be honest, most people do. And then they book a sales call and they're like, here's 5K, Jenna, or here's 10K, whatever it's going to be. I've been following you the entire time. And you turn around and like, who the heck is this person? I've never seen them before. It happens to me all the time.
Yeah, I've experienced it a couple of times. It's the most incredible thing. But yeah, thank you so much for reflecting that back, because I do sometimes think that people must be like suspicious. Am I really that chilled? But I totally am. And it is really down to the constant commitment that I have to myself to work through stuff. You know, if I notice resistance, I get curious. And essentially it's what I teach my clients and has been the whole time. So I'm just really, really lucky. I'm really blessed with the work that I do, because I get to lead myself and therefore be in a really good position myself. But thank you so much for reflecting that back, that there is no kind of, what you see is what you get. And yeah, it's just the way it is. And yeah, about how when you get out of your own way, you can just decide your way, because our brains are so incredibly powerful. Like, we can set an intention. I'd love to share a story, actually. I did your program with you before Freedom Accelerator, and that taught me how to go from being your average hypnotherapist who can help anybody with anything, you know, like weight loss, quit smoking, stop the fears, all the things, to actually deciding what you wanted to do, go high ticket and deeply serve one type of person. So I did that program with you. And then as soon as I was in there, I was aware of your high ticket group coaching program, Freedom Accelerator. I was aware of that. And I was like, right, I know I'm going to be in there. And yeah, just was inspired. And I knew I wanted to go all the way. I shared it with Tom what the investment was. And when you're outside of the coaching space, you have no idea like how much it is to invest in a coach, because obviously it's so incredibly powerful what you get out of it. But if you're not in that space, like Tom was in teaching at the time, he had no idea. So we had this conversation, and his jaw hit the ground and he had to process it. And we had to kind of like come to an agreement that we were going to like you help me, you know, give me permission together to decide to put that much amount down to go in the Freedom Accelerator. And we kind of set a target for me to get to. And I decided, I was due to finish in the previous program in October. And I decided, right, okay, I'm going to really keep going with this. I'm going to just put all in, and I'm going to be in Freedom Accelerator by January. I set that intention. And I got in November.
You did. 2 months early.
Incredible. Yeah, I was just so determined. I was like, I'm going to be there, Rose. I'm going to be there. And just it taught me how incredibly powerful it is to set an intention and to decide what you want. And then this whole 2-year journey of just deciding my way. And yeah, I know I shared this last week on the podcast. I don't set my goals in terms of like black and white. I want to achieve X, Y, and Z by this time. I just have pictures in my mind of things that I want to experience, and I just can dream it. And then when I create that dream and I'm experiencing it, it's the most magical thing. Like the retreat in Lisbon, I didn't get to go back in April because we just couldn't make it work with the childcare of my girls and being in nursery. Tom's still in teaching. But I just decided, as soon as you said back in, like straight away afterwards, you're going to do another one in October, I was like, I am there. And I pictured myself, and it was just the most incredible thing. And then I've just come back, and yeah, it was just, where am I even going with this? I don't know why.
Intention setting.
Intention setting. Yeah, that is the thing. It's just to decide what you want and then to just go for it. And I think the reason why I've been so successful so quickly is just to that constant commitment to not let anything stop me. Like if I notice a limiting belief, I will work through it and I will share it. And I know I'm so committed to getting support that, you know, like you've seen me share some really kind of vulnerable stuff in the Freedom Accelerator, and everybody praises you for like, oh, being so vulnerable. But actually it's a strength, isn't it? To share it, and then it helps you move through it quicker. And I don't know, it's just that commitment. I think what I'm trying to say to any listeners here is to get comfortable with being supported, because you don't have to do it alone. And if you're wanting to invest in somebody, whether that is a cleaner to help you support you in your house, or something in your business, a VA, whatever it is, do it. When you allow yourself to be supported, you can create so much more success.
Yeah. And there's a really big difference between paying for support and actually receiving it. It's very easy to say, oh, I'm going to invest in this thing, I'm going to buy this thing, and then not actually use it and receive it. It happens in so many different ways. I see people jump into the accelerator, for instance, then I have to go knocking on the door and be like, hey, how can I support you right now? Hello. Yeah. And sometimes it's down to, let's say we have a housekeeper that comes into our house twice a week right now. And it's amazing to be supported by her. And having had conversations with people like my mum, I'm aware that other people pay for this stuff and they don't actually really use it very much.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm just conscious of the fact that there's two different things between deciding to get support and then committing to actually receiving it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know so many times I've turned up on a coaching call with you just because it's there. You know, I've paid for that support, so I'm going to turn up. And if I feel like I don't have anything to ask that week, to still turn up. A very odd occasion I've decided not to, but a lot of the time I'll turn up and be like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about today, but I know that something's going to land and I know that I'm here for a reason. And always something comes through and I get value from it. So yeah, you're right. It is one thing to invest in support, but another one to actually allow yourself to deeply, fully receive it.
Yeah, 100%. It's funny, actually, there's a podcast episode that dropped today on my Grow to CEO show about how to 10x the return on your investment into business coaching and coaching in general. So if you're listening to this right now and you're aware that you've decided to invest in stuff and you haven't actually used it, go and listen to that episode, because it's going to give you an idea of all the ways in which we can activate value. It's not just, I'm going to invest 10 grand and get 100 grand back. Like, let's not limit it to that. Yeah. Value creation, like it's so much more than that. So go check that out if you're listening to this and you need help with that bit too.
Yeah, brilliant. I was going to ask where can people find you, but Grow to CEO podcast, Rose, is
yes, that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
And if you're on Instagram, feel free to come and find me at I am Rose Radford. And where else am I? Yeah, that's probably about it. roseradford.com too. There we go. Mm-hmm. all the places.
Brilliant. What would you like to say to my listeners? One piece of parting advice from where you are and what you have achieved in the past 2 years, would you say? It's properly skyrocketed?
Yeah, it's gone stratospheric in the last, I'd say, 18 months. So yeah, pretty stratospheric. We haven't even got into all of that on this episode as well, but it's a wild, wild story what's happened in the last 18 months.
So yeah, from that place, what would you like to share?
If I was listening to this 5 years ago and I'm thinking about what did I need to hear at that time, it was things like, Rose, your vision and goal that you have for your business and your life is 100% available to you. Don't doubt it. You want it because it's meant for you. Even though you're full of self-doubt and imposter syndrome and not feeling good enough right now, figure out a way to heal that, because that's what will shift you faster. And I wish I'd known that before, because it would have been a lot easier for me to have created success a lot faster if I'd gone and done the inner work and not just bought the strategy or something. And yeah, know that you will 100% get there in the end, as long as you never, ever, 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 ever give up. And I think that's the thing, like failure is only when you give up in the end. Yeah. And so just continue being relentless. And what you described earlier, actually, Jenna, was in my eyes, relentlessness, because you said you set the goal, you set the intention, and you figure out what's in the way, what's the limiting belief, how do you make it happen? And you're relentless with it every step of the way. And that's what creates really powerful momentum. Yeah, it's a really powerful trait to have. So I think that's what I'd say to myself. And hopefully that has landed for the people listening as well in some way.
Brilliant. And just, I'd like to bounce off one final thing before we end. And that's, you said you desire this for a reason. And that is so true, because anything that you at home listening to this, whether you're out walking your dog or whatever you're doing, any desire that you have in your mind, it's there for a reason, and you wouldn't desire it if it wasn't possible for you. So you can go out and you can create it if you get committed, and if you decide and you just go for it, and you give back any stories that you think, oh, I'm not good enough or whatever. Just decide and then go for it, and don't let anything or anyone hold you back. One final thing, actually, I can still picture it so clearly, the look on my mum and dad's face when I told them I was leaving teaching and retraining as a hypnotherapist, and that meant starting my own business. If I'd have taken that look and made it mean something, and also not just them, but everybody else said to me, oh, you can always go back to teaching if, they didn't say if, but that's what they implied, right? You can always go back to teaching whenever you want to. And in my mind, I was like, fuck no, I am not going back. I'm going to make this work. And so, I just decided, and we're really just getting started. Like, I'm so excited for what's ahead. Like, whatever I can see in my mind, I know I can create it. I've experienced it before, and you've experienced it, and I can see what's possible for me because of what you've done and everything. So, but you're inspired. If you're listening to this, you're listening to this for a reason. Be inspired. Know that you can create whatever you desire. So go and get it. My mission with this podcast and why I started it was to serve. And so I really hope that everything I've shared with you today and in previous episodes is serving you and helping you. However, if you're listening and you would like to work with me, then obviously I work too. I do solution-focused hypnotherapy and much more. And my program is the program that I'm really proud of. So if you're interested in this and would like some more information about how it works and whether it would be right for you, then do get in touch with me via the information in the show notes. Thanks again for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, I would love for you to share it with a friend or stick it up on stories on Instagram and tag me at Believe and Achieve with Jenna. See you next week. Calling all soulful entrepreneurs who are on a mission to make the world better and be well paid for it, I would like to invite you to join me in a free private training I'm going to be hosting soon called Hustle Free Abundance: How to 10x Your Business Without Working Harder or Implementing Another Strategy. In the very first event of this kind, I'm going to be sharing the actual process I take my clients through that helps them to do away with their limiting beliefs, hone their intuitive abilities, and leverage energetics so that they can create next level sustainable success from a place of total freedom, joy, and ease.
Head to the show notes to sign up for the live masterclass on Thursday, the 17th of November at 7 p.m. UK time. I cannot wait to sit down and share this information with you.